This is Rodney Ham, and I'm running a mock campaign for governor against Mike DeWine here in the Buckeye State, also known as the heartbeat of America, because of our allegiances to the Ford Motor Company and General Motors as well. We've seen a lot of economic ups and downs in our state here. One of the answers, or one of the solutions to me, to our economy is to produce more revenue. Okay? How do you do that? Well, you apply some Tennessee logic, like my ancestors would have, who served in politics for an entire birth throughout our democracy. And what they would tell you is probably the same thing I'm going to tell you, is you need to have more money coming in so that we can account for the deficits in our state, and the money going out has to be trimmed up. And I've got the solution. It's called Mothers of Mercy 3.2 Act. I'm going to hit some highlights for you, but it is easy to understand. I have a reading of it located on YouTube at RodCast, and I also have posted on my Facebook under Rod Ham and Rebel Hams the different styles and packages of the Mothers of Mercy 3.2 Act in print, and sent it to 2nd District Senator out of Lebanon Citizens National Bank in Lebanon, Ohio, Steve Wilson, and our new Congressman down here in the 11th District, Greg Landsman. Gentlemen, I hope you've read over it. I think it's a great solution. And here are some of the high points that I'd like to point out. Number one comes from a federal level. We need to stop or strongly suggest that people participate in EFT transfers instead of cash. Now I know some of the old things down there in Fort Knox, they're spending 2.5 cents to make a penny, and with some of the prices out there, they may be right. A nickel to produce the nickels that we produce is how much? And you got to factor in the time wasted by people who have to take the change to the bank, who have to take the money to the bank, the time that's spent on counting the money and separating the money, and all the facets that go into banking. Because in today's day and age, we don't need to go to the bank. And that's the fallacies here in America. We can bank online. All we have to do is educate the people who don't understand how to do it. And we can start closing down banks in this country. You say, well, what about the employees? Well, we're going to have to find new things for them to be employed for, because we're going to be an efficient state of America, and we're going to try to eliminate some of these frivolous things that don't make any sense. Money is responsible for transferring a lot of our communicable diseases. It is completely unnecessary, and it creates a bubble in our economy, not only in Ohio, but in the United States of America, for the black market, or the workers who don't pay their fair share of taxes, or the money that's spent on drugs, prostitution, and illegal gambling. And we can shut all those loopholes down with a computer trail that is absolutely accurate, time-stamped, and available 24/7. The benefits outweigh the convenience, customer service at the bank. I believe that we would increase our revenues probably more than 30% just by tracking down these companies out here who are paying cash instead of paying the insurance and paying the payroll taxes due to the American worker. Moving forward, I think that we have a problem in this country. I showed up in Detroit with our water, our sewage systems. And I think these sewage systems need to be taken a look at. I also believe that there's a lot of frivolous time spent. I know I posted pictures before of a team from the county uh, sealing the roads over in the Victorian place. And then you go up Robindale, and we had 5 or 6 employees in 3 cars taking a lunch break, uh, sort of watching over things. And it just seemed like a whole lot of people to seal the roads in a place that was just built in '90. Uh, we have to have better monitoring. And even though you hate to bring it up here in Warren County, which is the district of Greg Landsman and Steve Wilson, we have to take a look at hiring practices, especially when it comes to places like the courts uh, and like the utilities companies and other uh, places of interest when it comes to taxpayer money. We also, in that uh, rebuilding of the hiring practices and restructuring of the financial obligations due to county, state, and federal employees and taxpayers, have to take a look at education. And we have a plan here that has set for 20 years, and it's called the U.S. for Hope. I offered it, and I have seen some people do some things that make me happy. I know in Cleveland they've got some plans with their new stadium, and I know I've sent it to Mark Hazelwood and the Cleveland media. I know that we've got some things going on down here in Cincinnati. There's a great story that I did on the Paul Miracle um, ALS story that was touching. And I noticed that Kettering Health Network took an interest in trying to get some things done as far as teaching and educating people at the Cincinnati Bengals football games. And we appreciate that. But when you take a look at what could be done on a local level, like at Waynesville High School or other Warren County high schools, to bring attention to the qualities that we had here as in a mayor named Charlie Sanders, and to go ahead and admit that we have struggled since Charlie Sanders left, will not only teach our kids how to admit responsibility when they are wrong, but it'll also teach them the lesson that was taught to many about integrity, as he stood on his foundation as a Baptist and said, I would rather stand in the truth alone than stand with many in deceit. That is an earmark statement about how to change, how to take a step in a different direction to do something that you know is right, even if other people need to become more aware of all the things that were wrong that caused you to step into that wonderful 2nd District U.S. Representative candidate position for the Democratic Party that makes us so proud. And I know I speak on behalf of my family who founded the Democratic Party all those years ago with President Andrew Jackson. Our children will wonder in the future who people were like Charlie Sanders and others. And they'll investigate and they'll go to places provided to us by another great Democrat, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, like the public libraries. And they'll go in there and they'll do something they seldom do these days. They'll read. They'll read great books, like the book of Emily Donaldson of Tennessee, a great role model for any young lady who wants to aspire to be as much as she can be and to volunteer her time and her life to public service. just like her husband, Andrew Jackson Donaldson, who served as the first Secretary of State, and all of them coming from Tennessee, where my family came from. They'll learn about people like Stockley Donaldson, a man who was a brother to Emily, and Rachel was his aunt, and he stopped and decided that he would end his pioneer trail right there in Crab Orchard, Tennessee, and build a house, build a community, and build a family to be proud of, as you can tell from the citizens there today. All these things can boost our economy by getting people more educated and leading them to understand something that Democrats have been saying for a long time. It is time for fairness in Washington. It is time to trim the fat, and it is time to address the IRS once and for all. There is no reason for any tax cuts. There is no reason for any tax refunds, because budgets operate on projections. It will cause us to be more efficient in our planning commissions and financial advisories. When we say a 30% payroll tax, so do it. And if you don't like that, then we can make it a 20% payroll tax, 15% to the federal government, and 5% to the state. And then each community can invoke their own sales tax to compete in a market that we call capitalism. We can adjust the percentages if needed, but that's the way I got it figured. And my figures are pretty good, because we're spending a whole lot of money out here that we don't need to be spending. And we seem to just keep spending more on things out there like campaigns. How much money do they spend on campaigns for commercials on TV, commercials on the radio, when all they have to do is put it online? And if we're interested, we'll visit. But don't sit there and waste our precious time with our families talking about the gloom and doom of tomorrow. We're tired of it. We want to see more positive things so that we have more positive experiences with our families and our family time. And sometimes it's a pleasant gesture or something positive that makes us take a real look at what's important. And you'll find that also on my RodCast under Private Roy E. Smith's 1944 letter home to my grandpa, Jack Donaldson, also known as James Donaldson. It's a story that I've read over and over again for the better part of my life, really, and always wondered about that soldier. I wondered what happened to him, and I was blessed as I put it online and used YouTube and Facebook as tools to network out, and I got information back from the people in Crab Orchard, Tennessee, that told me how much they appreciated it and how it brought them to tears to hear the words of Private Roy E. Smith at 20 years old on May the 2nd, 1944, 10 days before he died, on Mother's Day, or at least close to it. So there was a tinge of sadness, but an overwhelming feeling of attitude here on Mother's Day and Memorial Day and all the days in between for what was given to us to protect our freedom as Americans, as Jews, as blacks, as people with disabilities, because they were being slaughtered in Europe. And we overlooked it for far too long, and it got far too big. And it took, once again, like President Andrew Jackson from Tennessee, a soldier with the right wherewithal to to end it like Roy E. Smith did.